Hello everyone, it's IT Chill here. Today I want to talk about law and security compliance. In many cases, when we talk about compliance, we are referring to law compliance. This means that when certain crimes occur, law enforcement or government step in and request that companies cooperate with their investigations. At first glance, this may seem acceptable to most people, including myself. However, complying with the law often comes with some serious drawbacks, in my humble opinion. Let us take a look at examples involving popular companies like Uber, PayPal, Microsoft, Apple, and Google. Many people may not be concerned about the privacy or security of their digital lives or data. In the case of companies like Uber and PayPal, but this also applies to similar businesses or services. When customers or users provide their data, only certain aspects, such as passwords and age, are well secured using techniques like homomorphic encryption, H, and cryptography hashing password. However, most of the other information, like real-life details, is not encrypted. This becomes problematic when these services require phone numbers and email addresses. For instance, in the case of Uber, if someone is suspected of being involved in a crime, a significant amount of information is handed over to law enforcement or governments. This means that the information of family members, friends, and even strangers can be accessed by these entities for investigation purposes. The rationale behind such actions is to collect as much data as possible and try to identify and exclude innocent individuals. Without proper exclusions, all relationships, whether direct or indirect, could potentially be linked to criminal activities. Exclusions are important for a reason. In the case of PayPal or Uber, these issues become more evident when we specifically focus on PayPal. When we engage in transactions with strangers, they could be international strangers. To maintain social stability, it often requires relinquishing international sovereignty over digital data ownership, which indirectly or directly relates to nations or individuals. Since user or customer data is not encrypted, it becomes even riskier when there is a crime investigation. The data that was initially owned by PayPal or Uber has to be exposed to even more people, which raises trust issues and increases the likelihood of illegal data leaks. Valuable data can be sold on the dark web. In the case of Uber or similar services, as they deal with real-time location data, exposing this kind of information can indirectly contribute to human trafficking, including illegal activities such as organ harvesting, slavery, and prostitution. In the case of PayPal, there could be commercially available payment services that are not affiliated with PayPal, yet only require specific financial information to engage in illegal transactions with another party. Although we can still use our local bank's online banking services to reverse such transactions, the damage has already been done. This affects a nation's reputation and can undermine people's confidence in both governments and companies. Once again, this ties back to the concept of relative privacy. Is the government there for the people, or is the people there for the government? This is an important question to consider in the context of privacy and law compliance. Now we have done with PayPal and Uber. We have to talk on Google, Microsoft and Apple. Any services they created and own are all closed source. Their source code are not accessible by public. While Google and Apple services may not directly mirror the operations of PayPal and Uber, to some extent they do handle similar types of data. I'm not quite sure on Microsoft, but Apple and Google also have services related to telecommunications such as Dialer and SMS app on iOS and Android. I believe that in most cases, these companies have to deal with nations, governments, and law enforcement way more than Uber and PayPal. However, things become more concerning as they are the tech companies, and certain form of criminal investigations may require to insert backdoors to criminals, but sometimes it may be ordinary person. There is again trust issues here because these companies are often considered too big to fail. Concerns arise when these backdoors remain within the companies even after the investigations conclude, potentially impacting national sovereignty and posing a threat to citizens' digital data ownership and privacy. A notable example that sheds light on these concerns is the revelation of Edward Snowden's leaks from the prison program. These leaks expose the extent to which governments can access user data from major tech companies, raising questions about the balance between privacy, security, and law enforcement. These services and their companies typically do comply with law, but at the same time they also comply with security requirements by security authority. However, these kinds of security requirements are mostly having the same issues stated beforehand in this video. Now, let us delve into the concept of security compliance. When we consider services like Signal Messenger, Tor Deep Web, Session Messenger, ProtonMail, and the idea of zero access and trust, it is important to explore our understanding and perception of them. To some, especially in certain Asian regions, these services may seem disruptive to societal stability and government control if not properly understood. However, it is essential to recognize that there are underlying reasons for the existence of such services. The drawbacks of law compliance and the distrust towards governments and companies have led many people to seek security compliance as a preferred choice. It is worth noting that these security-focused services are still subject. Taking ProtonMail as an example, when there is no criminal activity, individual users' IP addresses are not locked. However, in the event of a crime, only the IP addresses of targeted individuals will be locked. The email subject and recipient information are typically not encrypted. Other data is either de-identified, meaning there is no linkage to phone numbers or other identifiable information, or encrypted in a manner that only the users themselves can decrypt and view the email content. Nevertheless, it is important to acknowledge that these services still have elements of law compliance within them. In the event of criminal activity, IP addresses may be locked, and the email subject and recipient information may be handed over to law enforcement. While the remaining data may still hold value for both the service providers and law enforcement, these measures provide the best compromise in service provision. They aim to balance the need for privacy, security, and the requirements for crime investigations, allowing for monitoring and providing opportunities for investigations to take place. Signal Messenger presents a complex situation. While it utilizes end-to-end encryption, which ensures private and encrypted communication that even Signal cannot decrypt, there are still monitoring possibilities if there is information related to either the sender or recipient. Signal Messenger is communicated without the identified and in ClearNet. The communication itself remains private and encrypted, but the messages are decrypted and presented to the users on their respective devices. It is important to recognize that this cryptographic security mechanism has inherent weaknesses and drawbacks. Similar considerations apply to Tor Deep Web, as governments or law enforcement agencies need to locate the target on the ClearNet for investigations to be conducted. In both of these cases, law compliance and security compliance, there are pros and cons to be weighed. It is like choosing your own poison. These services can be utilized to stabilize or destabilize society, repair or damage the reputation of companies or nations. Additionally, there are services like Tor Dark Web and I2P that do not fit neatly into either security compliance or law compliance categories. These services bring problems and challenges to many individuals and societies. However, it is crucial to understand that there are underlying reasons for their existence. Tor Dark Web, for example, is known as a haven for criminals, but it also serves as a platform for dissidents, whistleblowers, and refugees. Similarly, I2P operates within a similar realm. As we navigate these territories, we find ourselves treading on a very delicate balance. If security compliance fails, we could be forced into a domain that cannot be predicted by cybersecurity experts or even the general public. The challenges and implications of these services go beyond traditional compliance frameworks and pose complex societal and technological dilemmas. Striking the right balance between security, privacy, and law enforcement becomes an even more intricate challenge. That is all for this video. Thank you very much.